In this demo, I'll walk you through and show you some more of the advanced features around states and how you can use them to help improve your ability to easily replicate systems as well as automate a few other tasks. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's say you have this system. I'm going to pick on this one here, this test and log station 1. And let's assume you have everything installed exactly the way you want. So as you look through the list of installed software, everything's exactly the way you want it to be, but you want to be able to match this system's configuration for a few other systems. So the first and probably easiest thing you can do is you can come over here and click Create State. And I'm just going to call this one, let's see, example full state. So what you'll see when you look at a state is it's made up of kind of two primary things. One is this list of feeds. So this is a feed is essentially represents where packages were installed from. So if you make a copy of a system and you include all the feeds that was used to set it up, and if we collapse this, all the packages, then essentially you can replicate a system by installing the same list of packages from the same feeds. So let's go ahead and do this. So now, one common misconception people have around states is they think it's either a disk image or something like that. And really, that's not exactly it. So think of it more as like a recipe on how to bake a cake. So if you made a cake using this one recipe in one way, you like the way it tastes, then you can easily replicate that cake if you follow the same recipe. In this case, this is a simple example, includes the list of feeds and a list of packages. Now, there's some more advanced features when it comes to states, which I'll get to in a minute if we select this Show Raw State. And again, now you can see the more detailed breakdown of exactly all the feeds and all the parameters as well as all these packages. One of the things I wanted to point out is when you replicate a system, by default, the packages are going to be kind of these exact versions. But you can come over here and there's additional syntax that you can provide to do ranges. So for example, if I just want to make sure it's greater than or equal to 25.0 and I don't really care about the build, I can change the syntax in the raw editor to this, and that'll provide just a simple minimum version, which will allow the system, if it has a higher version already installed, it won't try to do any downgrades, versus if we have it the way it originally was in the state, it'll force the exact version. So whether the system has a higher version or a lower version or nothing installed, when the state's going to be applied, it's going to install this exact version no matter what. So, but we'll get more to that here in a minute. One of the other ways you can create states is just creating them incrementally. So I'll call this one my partial state. And in this partial state, I'm just going to add just a handful of feeds. In this case, I'll pick some that are already locally on this tester, but I could pick feeds from ni.com and other servers as well. And then I'm just going to add a handful of packages. So in this case, I'll just add the package manager. Actually, let's see what else we have here. Yep, okay, just that one for now. And so this is a real simple state that has a basic feed as well as one or two packages listed. It doesn't list every single package. And so the benefit to this is if I apply this to a system, it's going to be the least disruptive. It's going to add what I need, but it's not going to remove anything else as long as it's not in conflict. Versus the other way, the full list tends to be a lot more disruptive, and in many cases they take a lot more time. So one thing you may be asking is this all I can do with states? Is the only thing I can use them for is deploying packages and configuring feeds? And while that's the easiest thing you can use them for, there's a lot of additional things. Now, to help illustrate some of these additional things you can use states for, we've put a lot of examples on ni.com. So if you go to ni.com, on GitHub, if you go to GitHub/ni and you search for SystemLink State examples, you'll find this repository, and we've come in here and created several different ones, as well as provided some additional documentation on how to customize these. So right off the bat, one of the things you'll notice if you look through the documentation is the states that are built into SystemLink are based on an open source standard called SALT, and in many cases we'll link to the documentation. So like, for example, one of the things you can do from a state, for example, if I look at this, disable and clear NIPM logs state, in addition to doing things like software installs, you can also do things like configure INI files. So in this one here, it's configuring an INI file, in this case to disable some of the logging for NIPM. That's purely an example. You could use this same syntax here in your state to change any INI file. In addition, this one's using this salt file module to basically empty a folder. So file.absent, if that's included in your state, it'll delete any files. This could be useful if you have logs or if you have a bunch of test results that are adding up over time and you want to basically remove them or periodically clean them. You could create a state really similar to this. If we go back to the README and I click on this link here, it'll open up the documentation specifically on salt, where they give a lot more examples on this salt state file module here. If we scroll down, you'll see you can use it to configure the permissions for a file. You can, let's see some of the other examples I have here. You find one a little bit more interesting. In this case, this is a more advanced one where they're basically setting a retention policy on a file to only keep files that match a certain number of years, months, weeks, things of that nature. Anyways, you guys can go through, again, click on these links in these documentation. In addition to the salt state file module, there's a lot of other ones in here. There's ones for configuring INI files, JSON, XML. If we scroll down here to the very bottom, you'll see a bunch that are very specific to Windows. Many of these will work on both Windows and Linux RT systems. However, some of them may be specific to one platform or the other. In many cases, I recommend doing just a little bit of testing. Things like paths and stuff like that can be different. And as I said before, and here's a list of some of the various different Windows ones that you can use for configuring Windows, like DNS settings and stuff like that. If we go back to our list of examples, a few of the kind of favorite ones I want to point out here. So if I look at this list here, for example, you can create what I call a master state. In this state, this is one for changing the master. So we're going in here and configuring this master.conf file to move, say, our system clients from one server to another, and it goes through and cleans up some of the security keys and then automatically reboots the system. Another one you can do, this is a bit different kind of a master. So in this master state, it's actually a state that's composed of other states. So in this case, if we had a state called get Windows example as well as NIVISA, we can do a simple include, and so when we deploy this master state, those other states get automatically deployed as well. Let's see, another example here is disabling the Windows updates. So in this case, this is actually more of an example, not specifically on disabling Windows updates, but clearly you can do that, but also just changing Windows registry keys. So if there was some Windows registry key that you needed to use, say, for example, to turn on some features or disable some things, here's an example of doing reg.present, and you can see the name of the key and the values that are being applied. A few other examples. So Windows KBs, if you wanted to, if you needed to deploy some Windows updates, so some very specific updates to a bunch of test systems, you didn't want to have to go through and create a package for that, you can simply do WUA for Windows updates .installed and then list the updates you want installed. Another one that's pretty similar to that is Git. In many cases, people will have, they may have packages which you can deploy, but you may also have some files in a Git repository. You don't want to go through building a package around them. You simply just want to install the files directly from Git. Here's an example for that. Actually, the first half of this example is really more about getting the Git client installed. So I had built a package for it and put it in a feed, and this is package.installed is literally installing the Git client. But really, it's the second half of this example here, the git.latest. This is where it's synchronizing some files from this Git repository listed in the name, and you can see the target is where I want those files installed on my local system. So anyways, this is just providing some of those additional examples. I guess if we go back to, say, this one here, just to show you what it looks like to add this to your system. So you could download this as a file, and if we go back to SystemLink, we go back to states, I could do import and import the file that way. Or again, if I want to just like copy and paste this stuff here, well, in this case, we'll just create a new custom state example. So if you create it this way and then do the show raw, you can then paste in and save this. So in this case, we have our custom state. And then if you want to apply these states to a system, you simply go to the system. In this case, we'll pick on this test station 42. And if we click on the States tab, this is where you can see all the states, both the full state example as well as the custom state I created. And you can simply click install and hit next, and it'll apply that state, whether it's a state that has feeds and packages, or maybe it's more of a custom one where you're changing INI files, things of that nature. So hopefully this has been useful. Again, just kind of walking through how you can use states. They're very powerful in SystemLink. You can use them to do some simple basic replication or installing a bunch of packages. Or again, you can use them for some more powerful things, changing INI files, registry settings, things of that nature. And in addition to kind of, I showed you how to deploy them to a single system, you can also deploy them in bulk to multiple systems simultaneously, pretty easy as well. If I just selected these and then go to software, I can kind of do the same thing and mass deploy a state to multiple systems at the same time. So hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for your time.